The fluorescent lights in Scripps Mercy Hospital's waiting room buzz with the kind of persistent hum that makes your teeth ache. I'm sitting here at 11:47 p.m., staring at a vending machine that's casting everything in sickly yellow light, trying to process the voicemail that dragged me out of my apartment 20 minutes ago. My mother's voice, strained and careful. "Mason, honey, I'm at the hospital. They need to do something with my heart tonight. Can you come?" Something with her heart. As if it were a minor inconvenience, like a squeaky door hinge. The nurse at the desk, her badge reads Patricia, keeps glancing at me with that particular look healthcare workers perfect. Professional sympathy mixed with barely concealed impatience. She's been waiting for my father to show up for the consent meeting. They've called him 4 times, she tells me, sliding a clipboard across the counter with practiced efficiency. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. We really need a family member's signature before we can proceed, Patricia explains, her voice gentle but firm. The attending surgeon wants to talk through the risks with someone who can make decisions if needed. I scan the consent forms, the words blurring together. Cardiac catheterization, possible angioplasty, emergency surgical intervention if complications arise. My hand hovers over the signature line while my phone sits silent on the counter. Dad's probably got it turned off again. He always does during his evening routine of checking tomorrow's tea times and polishing his golf shoes. "Where is Mr. Walker?" Patricia asks, and I can hear the edge creeping into her voice. "We've left several messages." I pause, searching for words that won't make me sound like I'm making excuses for a grown man. "He's probably at the club. It's member guest weekend." Patricia's expression doesn't change, but something shifts behind her eyes. She's seen this before. Families where golf tournaments take precedence over emergencies. I sign the papers with quick, angry strokes, the pen pressing hard enough to leave indentations on the pages beneath it. The automatic doors whoosh open, and Jamal appears with Kona on her leash. My rescue dog immediately pads over to me, pressing her warm weight against my legs. The tension in my chest loosens slightly as I run my fingers through her thick coat. "Any word from your dad?" Jamal asks, settling into the plastic chair beside me. I shake my head, watching the muted television in the corner. It's showing highlights from some PGA tournament, and there in the bottom corner, like the universe has a twisted sense of humor, is the logo for San Diego Country Club, Dad's sanctuary. His temple of perfectly manicured greens and networking opportunities that apparently couldn't be interrupted, even for this. Patricia approaches us again, her clipboard tucked under her arm. "The surgeon would like to speak with you before we begin. She's finishing up with another patient, but she'll be out in a few minutes." I nod, scratching behind Kona's ears as she settles at my feet. Jamal pulls out his phone and starts typing, probably texting his boyfriend to let him know we'll be here a while. The waiting room feels suspended in time, filled with the quiet conversations of other families facing their own crises. A woman in scrubs walks past, her sneakers squeaking against the polished floor. "Mason Walker?" a voice calls from the hallway. I look up to see a woman in a white coat approaching, her dark hair pulled back in a neat bun. Her expression is calm but serious. "I'm Dr. Shaw. We need to talk." Dr. Shaw leads me into a small consultation room that smells like industrial disinfectant and stale coffee. The walls are covered with anatomical charts of the human heart, all chambers and arteries mapped out in clinical detail. She gestures for me to sit in one of the vinyl chairs while she settles across from me, a manila folder spread open on the small table between us. "Your mother is stable for now," Dr. Shaw begins, her voice carrying the kind of calm authority that comes from delivering difficult news countless times. but I need you to understand the situation we're dealing with tonight. She slides a printed sheet across the table. It's a call log, time-stamped and detailed. My eyes scan the entries. 3:47 p.m., 4:23 p.m., 5:15 p.m., 6:42 p.m. 4 separate attempts to reach Trent Walker. Next to the final entry, someone has written in blue ink, "Declined call, requested delay until late afternoon tomorrow." Late afternoon tomorrow, I repeat, the words tasting bitter. For a cardiac emergency. Your father specifically asked if we could push the procedure to accommodate his schedule, Dr. Shaw continues, her tone remaining professionally neutral. He mentioned having commitments that couldn't be rescheduled. I stare at the paper, watching the timestamps blur as my hands start to shake slightly. Kona would sense this if she were here. She always knows when my nervous system starts spiraling. But she's outside with Jamal and I'm alone with the documentation of my father's priorities. There's something else, Dr. Shaw says, flipping to another page in her folder. This isn't the first time we've had scheduling conflicts with your family. Last October, your mother was admitted for chest pain. She was stable and responding well to treatment, but she insisted on discharging herself after 18 hours, against medical advice. She shows me another form, Diane Walker's signature, shaky but determined at the bottom. In the notes section, someone has written, "Patient states husband has important work event, requests early discharge to avoid conflict." The door opens and Harper slides in, her hair still damp from what must have been a hurried shower. My sister, cousin technically, but we've never bothered with the distinction, looks between Dr. Shaw and me with wide eyes. "I'm sorry I'm late," Harper says, settling into the chair beside me. "Traffic from Carlsbad was insane. How is she?" Dr. Shaw repeats the medical update, then shows Harper the call logs. I watch my sister's face change as she processes the information, her initial relief giving way to something harder to read. "It was member guest weekend," Harper says quietly, almost defensively. "Dad thought the timing was flexible. He didn't realize the timing wasn't flexible," Dr. Shaw interrupts, gently but firmly. "Cardiac episodes don't wait for convenient scheduling. When we delay treatment, we increase risk exponentially. Every hour matters." She pulls out a final document, a printout of text messages between the hospital's patient coordination team and Trent's phone. The last message, time-stamped 7:15 p.m., reads, "Mr. Walker, please confirm emergency contact availability. Patient requires immediate family present for high-risk procedure." Trent's response, time-stamped 7:18 p.m., "Can we discuss in morning? Currently unavailable." Currently unavailable. While his wife's heart was failing, he was currently unavailable. Dr. Shaw closes the folder and looks directly at me. "I need to know that someone will be present to make medical decisions if complications arise during the procedure. Can you guarantee that level of commitment?" I think about Kona waiting in the parking lot, about Jamal probably pacing the sidewalk, about my mother lying in some sterile room down the hall, trusting that someone will be there for her. I think about my father, 45 minutes away at some banquet table, probably regaling his golf partners with stories about his latest round. "Yes," I tell Dr. Shaw, my voice steadier than I feel. "I can guarantee that." Part 3. The Quiet Witness. Dawn breaks gray and soft over my mother's neighborhood as I walk Kona down the familiar streets where I learned to ride a bike and through newspapers before school. The surgery went well. 3 hours of meticulous work that Dr. Shaw described as textbook when she found me sleeping in the waiting room chair at 4 a.m. Mom will be in recovery for another few hours, and I need air that doesn't smell like antiseptic. Kona stops to investigate a fire hydrant, and I find myself staring at Helena Alvarez's house across the street. The same cheerful yellow paint, the same ceramic pot of succulents on the front porch.
Helena has lived there for 37 years, watching our family's small dramas unfold from her kitchen window. If anyone has the full picture of what my mother has been shielding me from, it's her. I knock softly, hoping not to wake her too early. But Helena answers immediately, already dressed in her gardening clothes, a coffee mug in her hand. "Mason, honey," she says, pulling me into a hug that smells like lavender soap and fresh coffee. "I heard about your mama. How is she?" "Better," I tell her. Accepting the cup, she presses into my hands while Kona settles on the familiar porch steps. "Helena, can I ask you something? About my dad." Her expression shifts, and I see her glance toward our parents' house across the street. What kind of something?
I tell her about last night, the missed calls, the scheduling requests, the pattern Dr. Shaw showed me. Helena listens without interruption, her weathered hands wrapped around her mug, her eyes focused on something in the distance. "Oh, sweetheart," she says finally, "your mama worked so hard to keep you from seeing it." She disappears inside and returns with her phone, scrolling through old text messages. "Look at this," she says, showing me a thread from 2 years ago. The messages are from my mother. "He'll be late again for Mason's graduation party. Don't mention it to the kids." Another from last Christmas. "Trent's flight got delayed coming back from Scottsdale. Can you help me get the turkey in the oven?" But it's the next message that stops my breathing. "Helena, can you drive Mason to urgent care? His fever spiked and Trent's phone is going to voicemail. I don't want to pull him off the course if it's not serious." "I remember that day," Helena says quietly. "You were 14, burning up with strep throat. Your mama called me crying because she couldn't reach him. He was at some tournament in Phoenix." I stare at the phone screen, remembering that urgent care visit. Mom had told me Dad was stuck in meetings. I'd felt guilty for getting sick and making her worry. I never knew she'd tried to reach him first. "How many times?" I ask. Helena's silence is answer enough. She reaches over and squeezes my hand. "Your mama loves you both so much. She thought if she could just handle everything herself, make it look easy, maybe he'd come home more," I finish. "Maybe he'd see what he had," she corrects gently. A text notification buzzes on my phone. It's from Harper. "Club banquet tonight. Dad's favored to win the member guest trophy. Dinner starts at 7. I show Helena the message and something hardens in her expression. 36 hours after his wife's heart surgery, she says, shaking her head. Some things never change. But looking at that notification, I realize something has changed. I'm not 14 anymore, and I'm done protecting him from the consequences of his choices. Jamal's apartment always smells like coffee and the lavender candles his boyfriend insists on burning. Today it also smells like determination and barely contained fury as we spread documents across his kitchen table like we're planning a military operation, which in a way we are. "Facts, not feelings," Jamal repeats for the 3rd time, tapping his pen against the whiteboard he's dragged from his home office. You go in there emotional, he spins it as family drama. You go in with documentation, he can't deflect. Harper sits cross-legged on the floor, laptop balanced on her knees, typing with the focused intensity she usually reserves for client presentations. I called Dr. Shaw. She's willing to provide a written summary of the medical timeline as long as we keep patient information confidential. Which we will, I say, spreading out the call logs again. Even in daylight, away from the hospital's fluorescent glare, the timestamps still feel like punches to the gut. This isn't about humiliating him. It's about making sure he understands the consequences. "No," Jamal corrects, his voice gentle but firm. "This is about making sure it doesn't happen again. Humiliation might be a side effect, but it's not the goal." My phone buzzes with a text from Dr. Mateo Rios. the hospitalist who explained Mom's condition to me in terms I could actually understand. "Got your message," it reads. "Happy to record a brief medical explanation. Give me 30 minutes. Harper looks up from her laptop. "I can get us into the banquet. Dad put me on the guest list months ago, and members can bring a +1. She pauses, meeting my eyes. "But Mason, if we do this, there's no pretending after. No going back to family dinners where we all act like everything is fine." I think about my mother in her hospital bed, probably awake by now and asking nurses if anyone's heard from Trent. I think about 14-year-old me with strep throat believing Dad was just too busy to drive me to urgent care. I think about all the stories Mom told to protect his image, all the times she made his absence look like her choice. "Good," I tell Harper. "I'm tired of pretending." Telling and preparing this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story.
Jamal writes banquet timeline on the whiteboard in his neat block letters. Awards ceremony starts at 7. Your dad gets his trophy around 8:30, gives his speech. We want him relaxed, celebrating, surrounded by his golf buddies when you present the evidence. Maximum impact, Harper agrees, then hesitates. But minimal cruelty. He's still our dad. I pull up my design software and start laying out the documents into clean, readable format. The skills I use for client presentations now serving a very different purpose. Call logs, medical timeline, Dr. Rios' explanation of cardiac emergency protocols. Everything organized with the kind of visual clarity that makes denial impossible. He's been our dad for 29 years, I say, adjusting font sizes and making sure the timestamps are highlighted. Tonight, he gets to decide if he wants to keep the job. My phone buzzes again. This time it's Dr. Rios with an audio file. 45 seconds of medical explanation in plain English about why delayed cardiac care kills people. Harper closes her laptop. "I'll pick you up at 6:30. "Wait," Jamal says, grinning despite the gravity of what we're planning. "Are we really about to crash a country club banquet with PowerPoint presentations and medical evidence?" I save the document and look at my two best allies. Welcome to my family therapy session. The San Diego Country Club at Golden Hour looks like something from a tourism brochure, all Spanish tile and perfectly manicured lawns stretching toward the Pacific. Valet attendants in crisp white shirts guide Mercedes and BMWs into neat rows, while couples in cocktail attire drift toward the clubhouse entrance like well-dressed moths to expensive flame. I'm wearing the only suit I own, bought for job interviews 3 years ago and slightly too tight in the shoulders now. Harper adjusts my tie with the efficiency of someone who's spent countless evenings at events like this. Her own cocktail dress, the kind of understated elegant that costs more than my monthly rent. "Remember," she murmurs, "as we approach the entrance, smile, nod, don't mention Mom's surgery unless someone asks directly." Lyle Benton, the club manager, greets us with the kind of professional warmth that never quite reaches the eyes. His gaze lingers on my guest badge before shifting to Harper with obvious relief. "Harper, lovely to see you. Your father's having quite the weekend. Second place after day 1, strong finish today?" "That's wonderful," Harper replies smoothly. "Mason's excited to see Dad receive his recognition." Something in Lyle's expression shifts when he realizes I'm planning to stay for the ceremony. The evening program is really more for members and their immediate families. Perhaps you'd be more comfortable in the grill room?" "Actually," Harper says, pulling out her phone and scrolling through what looks like official documents, "according to the club bylaws, Section 12, subsection 4, family members have access to ceremonial events following tournaments." She shows him the screen with a sweet smile that could cut glass. "I double-checked with the membership committee this afternoon." Lyle's professional mask slips slightly.
but he waves us through with a tight nod. The ballroom is a study of understated wealth. Crystal chandeliers casting warm light over round tables draped in cream linen, massive windows framing the 18th green where a few die-hard golfers are squeezing in final putts before dark. The crowd moves with the confident ease of people accustomed to being in rooms like this, their conversations peppered with references to handicaps and investment portfolios. I spot my father immediately, holding court at a table near the front, his laugh carrying across the room as he gestures animatedly to Savannah Reed and two other men I don't recognize. He's wearing his lucky tournament blazer, navy blue with the club's crest embroidered on the pocket, and his face has the particular glow of someone who spent the day doing exactly what he loves. For a moment, watching him in his element, I almost understand the appeal. This is where he feels successful, valuable, surrounded by people who appreciate his stories and celebrate his achievements. This is the world he chose over sitting in hospital waiting rooms and driving fevered teenagers to urgent care. Harper squeezes my arm. "Breathe," she whispers. "We stick to the plan." The MC taps the microphone and conversations begin to fade. "Ladies and gentlemen, if you'll take your seats, we're ready to begin this evening's award ceremony." I check my pocket for the folded packet of documents. Time to find out what Dad values more, his reputation in this room or his relationship with the family waiting outside it. The applause for Dad's member guest trophy fades as he returns to his table, the crystal award catching the chandelier light. His smile is genuine, unguarded in a way I rarely see at home. He's shaking hands, accepting congratulations, completely in his element. The perfect moment. I stand and walk toward the small stage where the microphone still waits, my heart hammering against my ribs. Harper gives me an almost imperceptible nod from across the room. The conversations around me continue. Cocktail chatter about weekend plans and upcoming tournaments, but I can feel the energy shift as people notice someone approaching the podium uninvited. "Excuse me," I say into the microphone, and the feedback squeal cuts through the room like a knife. Conversations stop. Heads turn. "I'm Mason Walker, Diane Walker's son, Trent's son." Dad's expression changes from confusion to alarm in the space of a heartbeat. I see him half rise from his chair before Savannah Reed places a restraining hand on his arm. I pull out the packet of documents, my hand steadier than I expected. "I wanted to share something with everyone while we're all here celebrating together." My voice carries clearly through the sound system and the room has gone completely silent now. Even the catering staff has stopped moving. Yesterday evening, my mother was admitted to Scripps Mercy Hospital for emergency cardiac surgery. I hold up the first document, the call log Dr. Shaw provided. The hospital made 4 attempts to reach my father for surgical consent. Here are the timestamps. I read them clearly. 3:47 p.m., 4:23 p.m., 5:15 p.m., 6:42 p.m. The final call was declined with a request to reschedule the procedure for today's late afternoon to accommodate his tournament commitments. Murmurs ripple through the room. I see Lyle Benton moving toward the stage, but Harper intercepts him with what appears to be an urgent conversation about liability and club policies. "This isn't about embarrassing anyone," I say, pulling out my phone. "This is about understanding priorities." Dr. Mateo Rios from Scripps recorded a brief explanation of why timing matters in cardiac emergencies. I press play. Dr. Rios' calm voice fills the ballroom. "Delayed treatment in cardiac events increases mortality risk exponentially. Every hour of delay can mean the difference between full recovery and permanent damage. When we ask for emergency consent, we mean emergency." Dad stands up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. "Mason, stop this! You're humiliating your mother!" "No," I say, my voice carrying clearly through the microphone. "I'm protecting her." Savannah leans over to whisper something urgent in Dad's ear, but he shakes his head, his face flushing red. "You don't understand the pressures I'm under, the responsibilities."
I understand that Mom spent 14 hours in surgery while you were here polishing trophies. I understand that this isn't the first time your golf schedule has interfered with her medical care. The room is so quiet I can hear the air conditioning cycling on. These people know my father as the charming guy who organizes charity tournaments and never misses a Saturday morning foursome. They're seeing a different side of his priorities now. Helena Alvarez steps forward from where she's been standing near the back of the room. Harper must have invited her. "We've been here before," she says simply, her voice carrying the weight of 37 years of neighborly witness. Dad's mask is cracking completely now. "You're all turning this into something it isn't." "What is it then?" The ballroom doors open with a soft whisper, and the room's attention shifts like a tide. My mother appears in a wheelchair pushed by a nurse, still wearing her hospital bracelet and a cardigan thrown over her medical gown. Her face is pale but determined, and when she sees me standing at the microphone, she nods once, permission and encouragement wrapped in a single gesture. The silence in the room becomes absolute. Even the servers frozen in place, silver trays forgotten in their hands. Dad's face goes white as sheet music. "Mrs. Walker," the nurse says quietly, "are you sure about this? You should be resting." "I'm sure," Mom says, her voice carrying clearly across the hushed ballroom. She looks directly at Dad, then at me. "I asked him to stop. Years ago, I asked him to stop choosing golf over family. I covered for him so you kids wouldn't have to see it." She pauses, gathering strength, and Harper moves to stand behind her wheelchair. "I told myself I was protecting everyone. I made excuses, rearranged schedules, handled emergencies alone. I thought if I could just make it easy enough, maybe he'd start choosing us." Dad takes a step toward her, his hands outstretched. "Diane, please, not here. We can talk about this at home." "We've talked about it at home for 29 years. I left the hospital early last October because you said the foundation dinner was important for your business. I drove myself to urgent care with chest pains in March because you were in Scottsdale and didn't answer your phone." The room is so still I can hear my own heartbeat in my ears. Savannah Reed has gone pale and taken a step back from Dad's table, suddenly very interested in her clutch purse. "I provide for this family," Dad says, his voice rising with desperation. "Everything I do is for—" "But you weren't here," Mom interrupts, and her voice is gentle but final. "When I needed you most, you weren't here. And Mason shouldn't have to sign surgical consent forms because his father is unreachable during medical emergencies." She looks up at me, standing frozen at the microphone with my packet of evidence. "Tell the truth, Mason. I give you permission to tell the truth." Lyle Benton finally reaches the microphone, his face red with embarrassment and anger. "I think we've heard enough family business for one evening," he says, reaching for the power switch. "But the damage is done. The truth is in the room now, impossible to take back or spin away." Dad stands alone at his table, his trophy glinting uselessly in the chandelier light, while his wife and son choose honesty over image management. Savannah whispers something urgent to her husband, and they begin moving toward the exit. Other couples follow, the careful social distance of people who recognize scandal when they see it. "Diane?" Dad says one more time, but she's already turned her wheelchair toward the door. "Take me home, Mason," she says quietly. Harper falls into step beside us as we leave the ballroom, the three of us moving together towards something that feels like the beginning of truth instead of the end of family. Mom's hospital room at midnight feels like a sanctuary after the glittering chaos of the country club. The heart monitor beeps steadily, a sound that used to terrify me but now feels reassuring, proof that she's here, stable, breathing. Harper has kicked off her heels and curled up in the visitor's chair, while Jamal sits cross-legged on the floor, having arrived with coffee and sandwiches none of us are eating. "I should have spoken up years ago," Mom says, her voice soft but clear. "I thought I was protecting you kids from seeing your father's limitations. Instead, I taught you that love meant accepting less than you deserve.
I reach for her hand, careful of the IV line. You were protecting us. We were kids. You're not kids anymore, she says, squeezing my fingers. And I'm tired of making excuses for someone who won't make effort for the people he claims to love. Harper looks up from her phone, where she's been typing with the focused intensity of someone crafting important communication. I'm drafting an email to Dad, setting some boundaries. Do we want to see it? Jamal shifts on the floor, stretching his legs. What kind of boundaries are we talking about? Harper clears her throat and reads from her screen. Written apology acknowledging the pattern of putting golf before family medical needs. Commitment to family therapy. Specific caregiving schedule during Mom's recovery. Emergency contact reliability, meaning phone stays on and calls get answered. And if he won't agree? Then he doesn't get access, Harper says simply. No guilt trips, no family dinners where we pretend everything's fine, no using Mom's kindness as a bridge back to business as usual. Mom nods slowly. I've spent 30 years making his choices easier. Maybe it's time to make them harder. My phone buzzes with a text notification. Dad's name appears on the screen, and we all freeze for a moment. I open the message and read it out loud. Family business should stay in the family. What happened tonight was inappropriate and hurtful to everyone. We did the right thing, I tell her, and for the first time in my life I believe it completely. Harper hits send on the email. Now we wait and see if he wants to be our father, or just someone who happens to share our DNA. Helena's kitchen table has become our war room by morning, covered with legal pads, coffee cups, and Mom's discharge papers. She's been released with strict instructions about rest and gradual activity. But she insisted on being here for what Harper calls contract negotiations with reality. Dad's response arrived at 6:47 a.m., a carefully worded non-apology that reads like it was drafted by his corporate communications team. Harper reads it aloud with the clinical detachment of someone who spent years parsing client doublespeak. I regret any misunderstanding about my availability during Diane's medical episode. Golf has always been important for my business relationships and stress management. I'm willing to discuss reasonable accommodations going forward. Reasonable accommodations? Jamal repeats, stirring sugar into his third cup of coffee. Like he's negotiating workplace disability requirements instead of basic human decency. Mom shakes her head with something that might be amusement if it weren't so sad. 30 years of marriage, and I'm a medical episode that created a misunderstanding? My phone buzzes with another message, this time from Savannah Reed. Trent is really hurting over last night. Maybe we could all sit down like adults and work this out quietly. Family conflicts don't need to be so public. I show the message to Harper, who grimaces. His golf partner is doing damage control. That tells you everything about his priorities. Helena pours fresh coffee and settles back into her chair. What exactly are you asking him to do? Harper pulls up the document on her laptop and reads our terms. Written acknowledgement of the pattern, not just last night. 6 months of family therapy with a licensed counselor. Rotating schedule to help with Mom's recovery. Grocery runs, medical appointments, household tasks. Emergency contact agreement with signed commitment to answer calls within 2 hours. And if he balks, Helena asks, then he doesn't get unfettered access to Mom. No guilt trips about family dinners he'll probably skip anyway. No using her kindness as a bridge back to his comfort zone. Dr. Shaw calls while we're drafting the follow-up email. She's organizing a caregiver support group and asks if I'd be willing to share our story with other families dealing with similar dynamics. Medical emergencies have a way of revealing family patterns. Sometimes people need to know they're not alone in setting boundaries. I find myself saying yes before I fully process what I'm agreeing to. The idea of turning our private pain into something useful feels both terrifying and necessary. Jamal grins from across the table. Mason Walker, public speaker. Who would have thought? My phone pings with Dad's second response. These demands are unrealistic and punitive. I've always provided for this family. I won't be subjected to therapeutic ultimatums. Harper closes her laptop with a sharp click. Well, that answers that. But before anyone can respond, another message comes through. This one, just a photo. It's a picture of torn-up scorecards scattered across what looks like Dad's home office desk. And underneath, barely visible, the corner of what might be a therapist's business card. Maybe not, Mom says quietly, studying the image. Maybe it doesn't. The community center auditorium smells like industrial carpet and fresh coffee, filled with folding chairs arranged in loose semicircles. Dr. Shaw's caregiver support group draws a mix of people I recognize from hospital waiting rooms. The exhausted spouses, the adult children managing impossible schedules, the families learning to navigate medical bureaucracy while holding each other together. I stand at the front with my hands steady for the first time in weeks, looking out at faces that understand the weight of emergency room signatures and insurance forms. Mom sits in the front row, color returned to her cheeks, flanked by Harper and Helena. Jamal has claimed the back corner with Kona at his feet, my dog's presence, a reminder that love shows up in quiet, consistent ways. 2 weeks ago, I thought family meant protecting each other from difficult truths. I learned instead that family means protecting each other with difficult truths. I tell them about the 2 rooms that changed everything. The sterile hospital consultation where Dr. Shaw laid out call logs and medical timelines, and the glittering country club ballroom where image mattered more than emergency surgery. I talk about the choice between keeping peace and keeping people safe. My mother spent decades making excuses for someone who wasn't present for the moments that mattered, not because she was weak, but because she loved us enough to shield us from disappointment. I glance at Mom, who nods encouragingly. But love isn't protection from consequences. Love is presence during consequences.
An empty chair sits beside the podium, not for drama, but for honesty. Reconciliation remains possible, but it requires showing up, not just showing off. We set terms, I continue. Written accountability, therapy commitment, caregiving schedule, emergency contact reliability, basic presence instead of performed presence. After the talk, people linger over coffee and homemade cookies, sharing their own stories of boundaries and chosen family. Dr. Shah introduces me to other families who've had to redefine love as action rather than intention. My phone buzzes as we're cleaning up chairs. A text from Dad. A photo of a therapy appointment confirmation, dated for next Tuesday. No explanation, no apology, just evidence of a first step. Kona presses against my leg as I show the message to Mom and Harker. Her weight grounds me in this moment, in this choice to keep the door open without guaranteeing access. It's something, Mom says quietly. It's a beginning, Harper corrects. Whether it becomes something more depends on what he does next. Outside, San Diego spreads before us in the evening light, a city full of hospitals and country clubs, emergency rooms and trophy ceremonies, all the places where we choose between image and presence. The empty chair will be waiting when he's ready to fill it with more than excuses. Until then, we have each other, and that's enough.
Up next, we have 2 more incredible stories that are waiting for you. Just click the image you want to watch, and it will take you there. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe. It would mean a lot.